In my last video, I talked about leading tones and modes, more specifically the three modes that I find to be the most important. Now, after watching that video, you may have a few questions, like why are they so important and why should I know about them? Or maybe you're wondering how you can pick them out by ear. Or maybe you're wondering how you can use it in your own compositions. Well, I'm going to attempt to answer all of those questions in this video. I'm Zika, and this is Music Theory Crash Course. Okay, first question. Why should we care? If you're a musician, you probably already know why we should care about Ionian and Aeolian modes. Those are what we play the most often. Ionian, for starters, is a natural major scale, and that means it's most easy to recognize your tonic in this mode. For example, take a listen to this 5-to-1 cadence and you'll see what I mean. Great, now let's talk about Aeolian. That's your natural minor, and it's built off of the 6th scale degree. The reason why this one is so important is because it's oftentimes seen as the direct opposite to Ionian. That being, it is a minor scale, whereas Ionian is major. Beautiful. Next, we gotta talk about Lydian. What makes Lydian so important? Or what makes it so important is that 2 of the notes in its tonic chord are the scale degrees 6 and 1, which means that it's connected to both Aeolian and Ionian, and it has characteristics of both, which means that it's kind of a mixture of minor and major, and that makes it really interesting to use to create dynamic emotions. For example, Great, now let's talk about how you can tell them apart in music. Now, major is relatively easy. Oftentimes, it sounds happy and everything leads to your do. It should be fairly simple to figure out what your starting note is. Like this. Now, Aeolian is also relatively easy to figure out. It sounds sad. That's why these two are so commonly used. They're very easy to understand. Now we're on to the hardest one to pick out, that being Lydian. One thing that can help you is by knowing that it sounds major, especially on your tonic chord. The tonic chord is a major chord in the key of C major, that being F major. Now, something that makes it stand out from the Ionian and what makes it different is that the 4th scale degree is lowered. The 2nd chord up in the Lydian scale will always be major. Beautiful, but how can we use this in our own compositions? Let me show you an example where you might be switching tonality, or essentially switching between modes. Take a listen to this segment. Now, this segment is already in Aeolian. It's in minor, and there are 3 things you can do with the following chords. The first thing you can do is keep it in Aeolian, which would sound like this. The next thing you can do, which is a little bit different, is switch it to Ionian, or major, and that would sound like this. Notice the switch in tonality? It stands out a little bit more. But there's one last thing that you can do that is even less predictable than the other 2, and that is switch it to Lydian, and that sounds like this. Notice how it sounds a lot less final than the other 2? It doesn't feel like a resting place. It has somewhere to move. And that's because it isn't meant to be a resting place. If you're switching to Lydian, usually it's only for a short period of time, especially if the rest of your piece is in a different mode. However, it can add a very interesting change of emotion. It's not just happy, and it's not just sad. It creates layers that you can use to change the emotion of your piece. Take another listen back. Maybe now you're starting to understand why I like Lydian so much. Let me give you another example of switching tonality to Lydian and how emotional it can be. Now I want to give you one last example of these three modes used together. I wrote a song a while back that uses all three of these modes in different sections. The verses are Aeolian, along with the first part of the bridge. Your pre-chorus is Ionian, and the chorus is in Lydian. I'll play little pieces from each of these so you can see how they sound different, but yet at the same time, they're cohesive. I hope that this little dissertation on my three favorite modes has given you a little bit better of an understanding of just how important they can be to know about. Now, go out there and write your own stuff using these modes, and I highly recommend taking a look at some other modes that you might find interesting. Thanks for watching. I'm Zika, and this is Music Theory Crash Course.